The stone giants that were seen in The Hobbit really work our imagination and leave us in awe, as these great lumbering creatures threw rocks at one another in a mighty thunderstorm. This vague and mysterious imagery is quite fitting for these beings, since we know so little about them, and some people question whether they actually existed in the land of Arda. Hello friends, it's Carl here, and in today's episode, we'll be unraveling the mysteries surrounding the stone giants. So the only time we meet these enigmatic beings is during the story of The Hobbit, when Thorin and company were making their way through the misty mountains in a massive thunderstorm. As each flash of lightning lit up the night sky, Bilbo would catch a glimpse of the stone giants across the valley, and it seems that they were playing some sort of game, throwing rocks at one another and catching them, before they threw them down into the valley below. The sound of these huge rocks crashing into the trees was mingled with the echoes of laughter and the sound of the giants shouting at one another, and in all this chaos, Thorin and company were afraid that they would be struck by a rogue boulder as the giants relished the storm. From this passage, we get the impression that giants were somewhat chaotic in nature, though I don't believe that they were evil beings. They were probably neutral like men, capable of both good and evil. After all, Gandalf hoped to find a giant that was good-natured and convince him to block off the entrance of the Goblin Cave of the Misty Mountains, which would make the land safer for travelers. However, the giants seemed to have an ominous reputation with the hobbits, and many stories and riddles were told in the Shire of giants with horrible names. Some of these stories were told by Gandalf, and they would leave quite an impression upon many hobbits, who were probably impressed by the massive size of these giants. Sam had actually imagined that throughout his journey across Middle-earth, he would get to meet these giants that were taller than trees, though he would have to make do with the Mumakil. Now it seems that giants had a more positive reputation among the race of men, and some of their stories claimed that the giants had helped men to build some of their greatest structures, such as the fortress of Helm's Deep, though I believe that these were simply legends, ways in which the men of the Third Age could explain the mighty works of their forefathers, since most of the knowledge behind their craftsmanship had been lost over the many years. Sometimes, men would also use stories about giants to explain some of the natural landscapes of Arda, such as the White Mountains of Gondor. According to this story, the White Mountains were built by the ancient giants to prevent men from entering their lands, and while these mountains were being built, one of these giants called Tarlank fell and stumbled while carrying a heavy load of rocks, and he broke his neck with this fall and perished. His giant kinsman would use his body as part of the foundations of the White Mountain, though his neck wasn't built upon, and so it formed a pass in these mountains called Tarlank's Neck. There were also 3 mountain peaks to the north of this pass, and the northernmost peak was said to be the remains of Tarlank's head, which is why it was called Dol Tarlank, while the other 2 peaks were believed to be the stones that he was carrying before his death, and they were called Kulveleg and Kulbin, meaning big load and little load respectively. This story was almost certainly a simple legend that was passed down from generation to generation, and I think that it's really amusing that the name Tarlang means tough or stiff neck, which is quite ironic, since his neck wasn't so tough after all. Stories of the giants were also present in the Lay of Lúthien, which was an unfinished poem that told the story of Beren and Lúthien. According to this poem, when Lúthien cast a lengthening spell, she invoked the names of some of the longest things in the world, and these included the neck of the giant Gillim and the sword of the giant Nan. Apart from their large stature, very little is known about these giants, though Gillim was said to have come from the land of Araman, which was the northern coastland of Aman, while Nan was a giant of summer that lived in the southern lands, and he was as tall as an elm tree. It's possible, and I think likely, that these 2 particular giants never really existed, and they were simply a metaphorical way for Lúthien to invoke her lengthening spell, though I feel that it does add credibility to the existence of giants in Arda and their characteristics. Now according to Gandalf, the Misty Mountains hadn't always been the home of the stone giants, and that the ancient bears that were Beorn's ancestors used to live in these mountains before the giants arrived, and so it's possible that the giants played a part in displacing these bears from their mountain home. Since the giants are only seen in The Hobbit, some Tolkien scholars such as Robert Foster believe that the stone giants were simply a legend or a fleeting idea that Tolkien discarded over time, while others speculate that they were precursors to other creatures such as Ents and Trolls. Now I disagree with the idea that the giants didn't exist simply because they don't appear in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. After all, we never see vampires or werewolves in the main trilogy either, even though both of these creatures were known to exist in the world of Arda. I also think that all the folklore and stories surrounding giants would add credibility to their existence, since these stories must have been inspired by something and originated from somewhere. Now the idea that the giants were a precursor or an early draft of another creature is more plausible, especially since in some of Tolkien's early manuscripts for The Lord of the Rings, Treebeard was actually the name of an evil giant that imprisoned Gandalf in Fangorn. There is also the example of Sam's cousin, who saw a tree man next to the Shire, and Sam refers to these creatures as giants. These examples make it seem like giants were a precursor to the Ents. However, in one of Tolkien's notes on the development of Treebeard, he wrote that there is a difference between the Ents and the stone giants, and it seems that it was his intention to make them distinct creatures. I also don't think that they were the precursors to trolls, since both trolls and giants appear in The Hobbit as different beings. And so, considering all of this, if giants existed in Arda and were their own distinct species, where did they originate from? In some of Tolkien's earliest drafts, the giants were created and bred in the depths of the earth by Morgoth, and they were among his servants, though it's clear that Tolkien abandoned this idea. Other manuscripts list the giants among the earthlings, which seem to be nature spirits, and they were divided into two branches, the wood giants and the mountain giants. I think that the theory that they were nature spirits fits quite well with their chaotic and wild nature, how they almost seem to be a part of the storm itself, and why they relished inside it. Though I also think that it's possible that they were a branch of the race of men. After all, hobbits are said to be related to men, and so it wouldn't be far-fetched to have large humanoid giants either. We also know of other strange branches of men, such as the Beornings, who had the ability to transform into bears, which I feel would add credibility to the chance that there were other unique branches of men. Now before ending this video, I wanted to discuss the movie's portrayal of the stone giants, because I'm quite sure that I'll get a few comments about it. So there is nothing in the books to indicate that these creatures were made out of stone or stayed fighting one another, and if I had to guess, I would say that the producers chose to portray them in such a manner to create a more cinematic experience. We can perhaps say that this would fit with the nature spirit origin theory, but I still think that it could have been applied better. In my opinion, the stone giants from the movies seemed like a raw power of nature with very basic instincts, rather than a fully sentient being capable of laughter and communication. Though of course these are just my thoughts, and I'm sure you all have your own opinion about it. Anyway friends, this wraps up today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the giants, and which origin theory do you like most? Do you think that they were nature spirits, or do you prefer the theory that they were a branch of the race of men? Or maybe you think they were something else entirely, or perhaps that they didn't even exist? I'd also be really keen to hear your thoughts on the stone giants in the movies. Do you like the way they were envisioned, or do you think it would have been better if their portrayal was closer to the books? As always, if you're interested, check out our Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and some of our affiliate links in the video description. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to join our fellowship today. I hope to see you all in my next video. where together we'll once again explore the magical world and lore of Middle-earth.